Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Welcome to Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy. For too long now, our generally perceived poorly educated electorate have fallen victim to the cheap and inferior propaganda of those seeking to hold others captive under the guise of democracy. Gladly, the CDGG uses edification to help to actively pursue a sustainable approach to reorient our people towards the importance of electing and selecting people of good character to public life. Through edification, we will highlight the importance of education appropriate to our development, proper healthcare and facilities as our right, respect for law and order, not to mention upgrading our people's thinking so they could become qualified participants in the democratic process to their advantage. After all, Grenada's national constitution makes allowances for the ideal of free men to enjoy freedom from fear and want, which can be best achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy his economic, social and political, civil and cultural rights.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Join us, Grenada, as we continue to promote a legacy of excellence through the Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Training Program. Over 1,000 Grenadians have been trained. Food, transportation, service industries, and other frontline workers don't want to miss out on this one. Learn more at www.puregrenada.com/excellence champion or call GTA Head Office at 440-2001. Remember, excellence begins with me. Excellence ends with all our represent for 7
Training sessions will resume on mainland Grenada from 9th to 13th October and 23rd to 27th October, and November 6th to 10th and 20th to 24th, 2023, in this year of transformation for service in Grenada. I am Eddie Frederick, a proud partner to this GTA Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Program. Get registered and come on in. You'll never think the same again.
We represent for 7 Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. Wonderful. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Now, it's such a plum-pleasing pleasure to be with you again on this hot, bright Sunday. You can actually feel the Christmas atmosphere wanting to creep in. But the only difference is this extreme heat. So, folks, hit that share button. Let's get some more people in the room and let's get fired up today, because in truth and in fact, you will get some very instructive notes today about that important topic that has actually crept in. That culture has crept into our actual, being or DNA. And we tend to think of it as normal and natural corruption, but we'll talk about that a lot more today. So welcome, welcome. This is open season. And of course, it continues here on Edification, our third Sunday of October, a month to be reminded that we are still in the hurricane season. So we must take nothing for granted. Notwithstanding that we are getting a dry season in the midst of this, rainy season, it also tells you something, that the seasons have gone crazy. So pull up your chair, sound the alarm as loudly as you can. Tell more people to come in and absorb the boldness and, of course, factual sharing available each week right here on Edification. Thanks for identifying yourselves and announcing, of course, your presence on the live while you share. Remember to hit the like, heart, care, follow, and even comment. Just do what you must, as usual, to make this as interactive as you usually do. We are happy to have you. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Even before we start, I want to really, what should I say, celebrate that we had a successful training week. That partnership that I have forged with the Grenada Tourism Authority, which is a noble act on their part, the chairman and the CEO, to have come up with this Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Program, together with, of course, the Director of Product Development, Mrs. Curl Hoshtialik. Oh boy, it's a plum pleasing pleasure to share with them their vision, because it's really a good vision. Service in Grenada has gone through the door. People behave as if, well, they think it's slavery. It is not realizing we're a service economy, which means that we repackage things and sell. So what is going to cause me to want to come down by you instead of staying up the road by him to buy from him? Service. The quality of attention you give to me as a customer will determine where I spend my money. But we have too many angry people involved in service today. And of course, folks, without meaning to hit anybody, because I really don't care anyway. Whoever feel they get a lash, get up and do something about it. Because leadership, poor leadership in the various workplaces is to be blamed for the willy-willy manner in which people serve customers. People think they work for Mr. X or Miss Y. They don't realize they work for the customer. And the Mr. X and Miss Y did not open a business to give them a job or to be a boss. The customer is our boss. And the more of us get to understand that, is the better we will serve, and it is also the better our business will do, because the customer runs our business. Without the customer, there is no business. So this is what a lot of Grenadians are becoming aware of in this Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Program. So let's get it going, folks. We resume on the 23rd of this month at the GIDC training room at the Frequente Industrial Park. And that room is very close to the entrance where the security man mans the gate. It's right close to him. You have any queries, ask him, and he'll point the door out to you so that you can come in. But I'll tell you something, don't come late, because that door is closed. And I want you to understand something, folks. When you know and feel and experience no consequences for your lack of punctuality, you continue to do it. But that does not work with me. The door is locked at a certain time. Don't knock at it. If you reach late for today, it means you're early for tomorrow. So come back. But you can't come inside, because we are not making nanate inside there. We make it serious business. We cannot be a nation of 50 years independent and we just happy to come any old time to anything that is serious, that means well for us. That is why for 50 years, we have nothing to show for it. Just a bundle of thieves who have done very well for themselves. But as it relates to a nation, collectively, diddly squat to show for it. Because this casual nature about come in whenever you want, that is why you're still living in the branca. That is why you're still coming out of the crab hole. That is why you have a problem being qualified to pay $350 a month to lift your living standards. And that is why you want a government to give you a house and give you a this and give you a that. That will never happen. You have got to be serious about your own life and stop all the people that complaining about the housing thing and whatnot. Why they didn't give you a lodging? Why they don't bring you by them? They don't want you by them because you cannot qualify to even say good morning to them in their yard. It is not you they like. It is the government of the day they hate, is why they're talking about the new and changed method for you to acquire something through your own independent abilities. And that is what this government is going to do. Show you how to earn. Show you how to become a dignified citizen of this country and not a lumpen that its leader could always come back and say, I am concerned about the poor and vulnerable, and been concerned since 1995, and the numbers keep growing and growing and growing under his leadership. Should be ashamed of himself. Anyhow, enough on that. Folks, I want to invite you who regularly tune in on a Sunday and who may not have yet followed my Eddie Frederick page on Facebook and my channel on YouTube. Do so that you're in, like all the others who enjoy unfettered access to at their convenience. Our topic today, the only how we can get rid of corruption is to punish the corrupt. Saboteurs who make every effort to protect the corrupt should also be punished severely. And I make no apologies for that. Come on, folks, share the live. Let's get some more people in the room. Keep sharing, and let's ramp up the energy here today, folks. Folks, the writing is on the wall. But many of us, our next generation, so to speak, the next generation of our people in the developing world, by the very poor leadership construct under which they function, they are waiting for the opportunity themselves to become thieves, because that's the example they've been shown. After all, they're taking their cue from their leaders. What a sad reality. They are actually seeing these corrupt leaders going unpunished. And so they are now ensconced in their own belief that it is okay to prosper by dishonest means. A recent international survey done on the developing world reveals, listen to this carefully, folks, that over 40% of young people think there is nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong with corruption. The only thing they seem to think that is wrong is to be arrested. And therefore, the only thing they must do is to avoid being arrested, just like their leaders, who put confidants in place in law enforcement and the prosecution departments of the legal systems, and in some cases, handpicked judges and magistrates that would turn a blind eye to their transgressions. Many of our people today would love to be in the position where they can steal, thief in other words, especially when they see there is no punishment meted out for the old thieves they elect as leaders. Many people are known to condemn corruption, not because they hate it, but rather because they don't have the opportunity to be corrupt themselves. We have to strive to reintroduce our region's people, and I dare say Grenadians, to the norms of integrity so they can see the value of honesty once more. But we have to start to punish severely all the corrupt. You know, the saboteurs in the various government departments, ministries, boards, whatever, that are there to make sure they extend immunity to all their old cronies of the past. You see those kinds? We need to punish them too, because that's a form of corruption. Our silence here in Grenada condone and encourage thieves. And in any event, most of those who were elected between 1995 and 2022 were just that, and I make no apologies for saying it. And who were not directly, were indirectly, as they were aiding and abetting the act of thievery against the poor, this poor nation, while we are made to live with the consequences today, severe poverty and deprivation for so many people. And that is precisely why we have to stop electing thieves to public office. Because when we do, they ensure that they operate with immunity and proceed to steal with impunity. All this time, while our moral guardians, the church, turn a blind eye. You see, in the middle of all of this, truth no longer matters around here, as we have all been witnessing that alternative facts have eroded our landscape, and truth itself has become completely subjective and transactional. We have lived in a country where a majority of our voting population supported a consummate liar for years, a leader who introduced transactional leadership to the political landscape to the point where the extended period he was around the precincts of power infected the psyche of his supporters that they no longer can distinguish between a lie and the truth. That tells you how much he has been a danger to their very education and therefore right to a decent standard of living and quality of life. You see, national addresses delivered by that idiot became a slew of lies each time, with the body of the actual deliveries worthless and without substance. Just go back on YouTube. If you think I lie, go back on YouTube, search for them. When you find them, try to get past the first sentence. The spirit and the energy and the frequency of that man does not permit you to go any further, because the first sentence tells you everything else is rubbish, total garbage. You would realize that each of those speeches in the archives were not even worth the search, as they neither reflect substance nor do they reflect intentions for national development. They only reflect bacchanal and mayhem held together by constant lies to feed into his narratives of transactions, to keep the people thinking a certain way, resulting in a totally deteriorated Grenadian civilization today. My prayer and hope, folks, is that our people will wake up to become so conscious that they will become like me, not willing to be around people who vibrate at a terrifically low frequency and who operate with impunity when it comes to dishonesty. I long to see the day when many more people will become conscious enough to vibrate at such a higher frequency that they no longer want to be around people who are negatively contagious, a total frustration to be around, irritating, whose very nature shift you out of alignment and are spiritually deprived. Because of the constant deterioration of our civilization under the hands of extremely poor and inferior leadership for such an extended period, it has become hard to find people who feed into you and feed into your life positively. There is a reason why many people cannot do this, and therefore you must let them go. You have to let these people be who they want to be, so you could be who you want to be and who you deserve to be. I could see some of you having an aha moment right now. The reason why I created a wonderful living space for me to live is because I want to be happy to be there, to be at a place called home. That is my safe space. It is my sanctum. It is my environment to reinfect myself perpetually with high frequency, positive energy always. No compromise. Folks, the truth is, when you heal from your personal traumas and awaken in life and become conscious of how life is truly supposed to be lived, you become alone. Not lonely, alone. Lonely, of course, is when you miss people and you wish they could be around and you therefore feel abandoned. I have never felt that way in my life. Because you start to see everyone for who they are and are able to pinpoint people's traumas. You see, because you become a discerning character. You become able to be wise enough to discern people, because you start to see everyone for who they are and are able to pinpoint people's traumas, folks. You can look at this person or that person and see daddy issues, abandonment issues, betrayal issues, narcissistic personality, dishonesty issues, issues of hypocrisy. Then of course, you start realizing everyone's issues. And when you realize they're not doing anything about it, and they don't even care about doing anything about it, the truth is you no longer want to be associated with these people, because you have developed strong boundaries once you heal. And so you become a lone ranger. You become one man with courage, a majority. That is where I am at this moment, folks. Loving it. Loving it. Because I would rather be alone than with the wrong crowd. Grenada has become a factory for the wrong crowd due to the constant deterioration of our civilization. I tell you all the time, folks, of my very small circle, which is so healthy, so loving and so nurturing, so accepting, so warm, and effortlessly ooze with love. Effortlessly. You see, first, if you want to have friends like that, you have to become first that kind of friend. So when you are that kind of friend, you attract that kind of friends. In my past life, with all the noise, I never had that before. And I have that now. So I understand the principle of quality over quantity. The principle very profound, folks. I love it, I love it, I love it. So folks, study your head now. So that you now, when you become this conscious, you can say with gusto, the only how we can really get rid of corruption is to punish the corrupt. Fake friends, we have to avoid, because fake friendship is a form of corruption. Let them go. And if you know you are a fake friend yourself, change that, because that's why you attract them. And of course, while we're at it, we have to remember that saboteurs who make every effort to protect the corrupt should also be punished severely. No apologies made, folks. That's just how I feel.
Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during Edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and or affiliates of this program.
Join us, Grenada, as we continue to promote a legacy of excellence through the Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Training Program. Over 1,000 Grenadians have been trained. Food, transportation, service industries, and other frontline workers don't want to miss out on this one. Learn more at www.puregrenada.com/excellence champion or call GTA head office at 440-2001. Remember, excellence begins with me. Excellence ends with all our
Training sessions will resume on mainland Grenada from 9th to 13th October and 23rd to 27th October, and November 6th to 10th and 20th to 24th, 2023, in this year of transformation for service in Grenada. I am Eddie Frederick, a proud partner to this GTA Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Program. Get registered and come on in. You'll never think the same again.
We represent 4-7 Trap.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Yes. So, folks, if you have any friends that you have to second guess, hello, let them go. You see, a lot of us make friends too easily. You see, social media came and invited us to believe that when somebody makes a request, it's a friend request. And they have that word friend. Friend is a deep thing. Friends, folks, are the family you choose. Friends are deeper. I consider the people that most of the people that I have on my social media, they are contacts. They're not friends. So I don't get into what they do. I don't let them get into what I do. A matter of fact, I have boundaries and my friends very, very high. You see, a lot of you who, regulars, there are different tiers of friendship. There are lots of people in my friend group and my regular followers that I just admire. I admire, one, your consistency. I admire your consistency at following what you want to follow, what you feel you ought to follow. That is respect. And I believe we are enjoying a better relationship from the aspect of respect than just this casual friendship. Ladies, you go into a bathroom, you meet somebody, you say, hey, we click, you come out as best friends. But then guess what? The person wants your man. You getting the message now? Folks, the personality you met in the bathroom did not show you their character in the bathroom. They only showed you their personality. You see this thing about wanting your man? That is their character now. And they're showing you they have no character. That's the person that will borrow something from you and not pay back or not return it because they have no character. Folks, you fall in friendship with people's character, not their personality. Enough on that. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back. I know you're liking all these straight talk, because a lot of you don't get that anywhere else because we are so shallow. Everything is just at the shallow level. Goodly folks, what is your biggest achievement in your life? I'll tell you what mine are. Very, very simple. Mine's simple. I love who I am, who I have morphed into. I love what I do. I do what I love. I love how I do it. I like my mistakes. I like how I learned from them. I like the pace with which I learn from my mistakes. I will not trade me for anybody else. By having all the time in the world, folks, to spend on focusing on me, I want to spend some more time figuring out who I am. Didn't I tell you I have a lot of alone time? Not lonely, because you cannot be lonely if you enjoy the company of the person you are alone with. And therefore, I love being alone because it gives me a chance to analyze and process and think. And that is how I am able to develop the spirit of discernment. That is how I'm able to add to my wisdom. The biggest achievement, folks, in life, my biggest achievement is my level of consciousness. So when you start off as a person who is in this conscious realm and you understand the importance of self-determination, usually don't give two hoots about who may think of you or say about you. Because most of the people that are thinking negative about you and saying negative things about you, watch me good, they're hungry. And they're making themselves more hungry by doing that. When if they're pleasant, they will attract the right energies to them so that they can be fed. Most of the people that hate you, they hate you because of what they hear about you. Not because of what they know, because they don't even have your number. They have no coordinates of yours, but they hate you. it has to do with envy, malice, jealousy. You see, folks, you can therefore afford to speak as forthright as I speak on a number of issues, regardless of the reactions of others, because you're comfortable in your skin. Folks, corruption is something that pisses me off to no end, especially when it is carried out as brazen daylight robbery right before our very eyes. Imagine the same people who commit these acts of corruption were actually people that came to you asking you for your trust. And then they turn that trust that you reposed in them into a license to pillage and rape your national coffers with impunity, leaving you as nothing but the poor and vulnerable that they want you to believe they care so much about. Let's take a look at the following 10 ways the ugly face of corruption can be successfully fought against. 1. Corruption is not only about bribes. People, especially the poor, get hurt when resources are wasted. That's why it is so important to understand the different kinds of corruption to develop smart responses. 2. Power of the people. Create pathways that give citizens relevant tools to engage and participate in their governments. Identify priorities, problems, and find solutions. 3. Cut the red tape. Corruption hides in red tape. And God knows our government service in Grenada full of red tape for no reason at all. You go into a ministry and you have a letter in your hand that all they have to do is to, maybe you do it in duplicate too. All they have to do is to stamp, sign, put a date on it and give it back to you. And they tell you that does take 2 weeks. But look the man sitting down there. Look you here. Look the stamp on his table. Look the letter right here. And he's telling you it will take 2 weeks. Why? Isn't that a hint? Maybe if you give him something, you'll get it right away. Folks, all of that is rubbish. Rubbish red tape for no reason at all. So cut the red tape is number 3. Bring together formal and informal processes. This means working with the government as well as non-governmental groups to change behavior and monitor progress. 4. This is not 1999. Use the power of technology to build dynamic and continuous exchanges between key stakeholders, government, citizens, businesses, civil society groups, media, academia, etc. 5. Deliver the goods. Invest in institutions and policy. Sustainable improvement in how a government delivers services is only possible if the people in these institutions endorse sensible rules and practices that allow for change while making the best use of tested traditions and legacies. Imported models often do not work. So we are not, this is transformation time. We're not importing anything from the last corrupt administration. And any saboteurs inside there wanting to reverse the process, we should make them go. Don't care nothing about no union. Because the union want government to do X, Y, and Z. But they want to protect saboteurs. Pay them off and pelt them out. This thing is getting vexing, you know. Vexing. And when the union come, pelt them too. Because they are only what you call legal aid for wrong thing. Rubbish. Number 6. Get incentives right. Get incentives right. Align anti-corruption measures with market, behavioral, and social forces. Adopting integrity standards is a smart business decision, especially for countries and corporations interested in doing business with reputable international development partners. This thing about giving back, refunding investors in the Kawana Bay, You know where that has put Grenada on the integrity index? Grenada is telling investors, we are good for our word. The old nastiness no longer presides over our country. Decent people now preside over the leadership of our country. Don't you think that gives these people confidence to want to invest further? Number 7, sanctions matter. Punishing corruption is a vital component of any effective anti-corruption effort. Strengthen and enforce insider trading legislation to punish all across the public and private sectors. So you don't have no minister or people in government buying a property because they want to sell it through the citizenship by investment program. That is what is called insider trading. In England, that person would be fired and probably could take some jail too. In Singapore, or don't even think about it. That person better just start walking up to the jail. That should not be an exclusion in Grenada. We need to prosecute all of them so that they cut that nonsense out. 8, act globally and locally. Keep citizens engaged on corruption at local, national, international, and of course, global levels. Keep them in line with the scale and scope of corruption. Make use of the architecture that has been developed and the platforms that exist for engagement. 9, build capacity for those who need it most. Countries that suffer from chronic fragility, abject dunceness, which most times lead to conflict and violence, are often the ones that have the fewest internal resources to combat corruption. Grenada is case in point. Identify ways to leverage international resources to support and sustain good governance. And of course, the 10th one, learn by doing. Any good strategy must be continually monitored and evaluated to make sure it can be easily adapted as situations on the ground change. Folks, another way you can fight corruption in people is by fighting the corruption that is within you first. If anyone fights the insider corruption, he or she will be strong enough to fight against the outsider corruption. You see, basically, corruption comes down to one thing: the exploitation of most people, the masses, the poor and vulnerable, by a few greedy ones who don't respect them. Right here in Grenada and in many other developing countries of the world, the region too, as well as in the well-developed countries too. Corruption comes from the exploitation of the natural resources and also in the improvements of the infrastructure. These come from taxpayers' money, which creates the infrastructure, which ought to be better shared. Look at our experience here in Grenada, where an administration was allowed to gather all of the nation's taxes, bring benefits only to its political cronies and all the dunce supporters that it created, especially its greedy and vultures, while it fooled the needy to believe that it was benefiting them, all this time expanding their base to feed its vote farm every election cycle, turning the people into poor, destitute people, giving them a mess of pottage every so often so that they feel, well, boy, this is where I'm getting a little food. This is where I gain a little something. Not realizing they have become a member of a vote farm, a vote, V-O-T-E, vote farm. And they farm the votes at election time and keep them poor and vulnerable, and then come out with the same rhetoric. I am so concerned about the poor and vulnerable. 23 straight years in power. And all they could talk about as their achievement and their legacy is the poor and vulnerable. Folks, isn't that vexing? You see, the only how we can get rid of corruption punish the corrupt. Saboteurs who make every effort to protect the corrupt should also be punished severely. You're vexed, that is your face.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during Edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
Join us, Grenada, as we continue to promote a legacy of excellence through the Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Training Program. Over 1,000 Grenadians have been trained. Food, transportation, service industries, and other frontline workers don't want to miss out on this one. Learn more at www.pureGrenada.com/excellence champion or call GTA head office at 440-2001. Remember, excellence begins with me. Excellence ends with all our represent 47
Training sessions will resume on mainland Grenada from 9th to 13th October and 23rd to 27th October, and November 6th to 10th and 20th to 24th, 2023, in this year of transformation for service in Grenada. I am Eddie Frederick, a proud partner to this GTA Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Program. Get registered and come on in. You'll never think the same again.
We represent 47
Hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftop and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, wonderful, folks. And of course, we have 2 more segments to go, this being the 3rd segment. I want to thank you very much for your time. For those of you just joining, thank you. But of course, keep hitting that share button. And there's some people who maybe 2 o'clock is not convenient to them. But be that as it may, let's move on. Let's get a move on. You see, folks, why is it important to reduce corruption? Undetected and unchecked, corruption in the public sector can cause serious damage, including what? Undermining public trust in government, as we've seen. Wasting public resources and money, as we've seen. Causing injustice through advantaging some at the expense of others. Well, that was something that happened from 1995 right down to 2022 for the most part. What are the 4 types of corruption? Remember I alluded to that earlier? The most common types or categories of corruption are simply supply versus demand corruption. Supply versus demand corruption. Grand versus petty corruption. Conventional versus unconventional corruption. And public versus private corruption. There is an unofficial 5th, which is most dangerous: electing a known thief to run a country's affairs. You could only get corruption from that. You see, folks, political parties are often seen as actors that abuse their powerful positions to extort bribes. To supply members and followers with lucrative positions in the public sector, or to channel public resources into the hands of party leaders and or supporters. Party corruption is especially problematic in developing and traditional countries where political and economic institutions are not yet fixed. In the long run, party corruption can undermine public trust and threaten the viability of democracy. Democratic parties in a competitive political framework, however, can perform valuable political and social functions as links between citizens and government in voter representation and information, policy making, and human development. What is the link between party activities and corruption? Under what conditions and in which forms can we find corruption in the area of political parties? What measures should be taken to eliminate party corruption? You see, corruption in the context of political party activities need to be addressed. We need to focus on party corruption in the contexts of election campaigns, party activities in parliament, and party control over public assets and institutions. Any political party that operates without respect for the boundaries that clearly ought to separate party from government is a party to avoid. And you see, we just avoided one. We must continue to avoid them because they have no boundaries. That kind of culture is usually pushed by a corrupt leader who is inherently dishonest to the core. We have seen how Grenada's longest serving administration operated with impunity in this regard. Today, the old expired leader of that same political entity has sought to come out swinging against the new administration, accusing them of the same and even more intransigencies that they were perpetually guilty of for their entire 1995 to 2022 period, for the most part. You see, opportunities for corruption are taken advantage of by mostly unscrupulous individuals with serious character flaws, whose beginning at the level of leadership is steeped in deceit and double-crossing. Corruption is usually encouraged by constituents whose ignorance is taken advantage of and who are made to believe in the process that there are benefits to be derived. Unscrupulous leaders, like the one we have only recently risen up to depose, found it necessary to even corrupt the minds of the masses, many of whom today believe that dishonesty is the only way to prosperity. While campaign finance regulations and anti-corruption laws are important in the fight against corruption, folks, they need to be embedded in a broader strategy that promotes intra-party democracy, party competition, transparency, and monitoring by a capable, professional, and serious fifth estate, the media, which of course ceased to exist in Grenada since 1995, an informal public, and an active civil society. What a shame our media, for the most part, has been rendered what? Useless. Useless. And that is why that old nastiness and his brigands were able to run amok from 1995 to 2022 for the most part. You see, folks, it's the world's experience that both in industrialized democracies as in developing countries, political parties are often seen as part of the corruption problem. Right here in Grenada, we have seen how a characterless individual has institutionalized this malady. Discourses all over on corruption and anti-corruption strategies have identified parties as key actors who abuse their powerful positions in the political system, among else to extort bribes, to supply their senior members and ardent followers and close friends with lucrative positions in the public sector and related corporations, to share political and economic institutions to shape them to the benefit of who? Affiliated interest groups, or to channel public resources into the hands of party leaders, members, and close supporters. This went on here in Grenada ad nauseum under the leadership of the old nastiness and his National Nastiness Party, NNP. Party corruption can especially be seen as a problem in newly democratizing and developing countries where political and economic institutions are not yet fixed. After all, Grenada is one such country which had a restart of democracy in 1984, a year after the American-led military intervention that saw miscreants using this as their time to invade our political landscape, and we did nothing about it, starting with that old nastiness who had absolutely no good intention for the country but for himself. The redistribution of public assets, which is a necessary part of democratic tradition, was totally disturbed by corruption over the years. In the long run, party corruption and related scandals have undermined public trust and led to voter cynicism and disillusionment with the political system over the years, thus threatening the viability, folks, of democracy. You see, we saw this stutter here in Grenada, with many people registered to vote staying away from the polls for as many as 5 election cycles, resulting in a repeat of the same old corrupt nonsense, with absolutely nothing to show for the phenomenal national debt that we are immersed in today. You see, this culture of long-term high-level corruption also provided a powerful incentive for the National Nastiness Party, NNP, to secure political power, thus producing an authoritarian leader, one-party monopoly almost, and a totally non-democratic government. I was very concerned that the prospects of gains from the corrupt practices of the National Nastiness Party and its diabolical leadership might have tempted fed-up locals to try to overthrow the government by force. After all, we were there before. Or might have made existing corrupt regime more resistant to further democratization. You see, folks, while current international anti-corruption regimes, such as the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, Convention on Combating Bribery of Foreign Public Officials in International Business Transactions, have not yet included party corruption into their framework, the United States and international policymakers and anti-corruption NGOs, such as Transparency International, point out the importance of party corruption, especially with regards to political contributions for future anti-corruption. Folks, while corrupt parties can thus stall or even destroy the processes of democratization, political parties that are not distorted by corruption, but which are part of a well-institutionalized and competitive political framework, can play a vital role in democracies and perform valuable political and social functions. The National Democratic Congress, NDC, is the party that comes closest to being so qualified. In fact, its transformation agenda is broad in its scope and intends to help shape a new political landscape for Grenada, where the party will stay out of day-to-day governance and run its own affairs to be a link between communities and reaching the people. After all, that is what parties ought to do: provide a link between citizens and government. Parties mobilize voters on behalf of a certain goal, on behalf of certain interests, as outlined in their manifestos, select and train candidates for public office, which has become a must, especially in light of where we are coming from with all kinds of hang-gibbets at both the representatives to parliament and the executive levels. Organize election campaigns. Parties are supposed to make sure they send decent representatives to parliament, organize legislatures, formulate political agendas and policies, manage policy processes, and steer, or as opposition parties, monitor government activities sternly. By publicizing and promoting their programs, parties also provide voters with substantial information about current political issues, the general workings of government, and citizens' democratic rights. They thus actively contribute to voter education and human development and can function as builders of social capital. This role of political parties can become even more important in developing and transitioning states which are in the process of defining and stabilizing the rules and institutions of democratic government and market economies. Now, having shared all of this, I pray and trust, it's my prayer here, that the NDC General Secretary will get up off his backside and put some life in things like these and stop just taking the position as a position for photo ops, because you can't feel him, you can't see him doing any of these. He is supposed to be the man running these things, making these things happen. You can't feel him. Folks, the only how we can get rid of corruption is to punish the goddamn corrupt, punish them to the core. Saboteurs who make every effort to protect the corrupt should also be punished severely. Let's take a last break here, folks, and we'll come back. More fire!
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during Edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and or affiliates of this program.
Join us, Grenada, as we continue to promote a legacy of excellence through the Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Training Program. Over 1,000 Grenadians have been trained. Food, transportation, service industries, and other frontline workers don't want to miss out on this one. Learn more at www.puregrenada.com/excellence champion or call GTA head office at 440-2001. Remember, excellence begins with me. Excellence ends with all our
Training sessions will resume on mainland Grenada from 9th to 13th October and 23rd to 27th October, and November 6th to 10th and 20th to 24th, 2023, in this year of transformation for service in Grenada. I am Eddie Frederick, a proud partner to this GTA Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Program. Get registered and come on in. You'll never think the same again.
Hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftop and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, wonderful, folks. So we have the final segment here coming up fast and furious. So brace yourselves, folks. Brace yourselves. Welcome to those who are just taking in this final segment, and for those of you others just joining too, welcome. Apart from that, continue to share, whether we're on live or not. Just continue to share. Now, welcome. What are the temptations for political parties and their representatives to engage in corrupt behavior? What areas of party activity are especially vulnerable to corruption? What measures should be taken to prevent corruption in the area of political party activities, or to make parties more resistant to corrupt offers? How can parties be reformed to stay within the bounds of law and the rules of good politics, while at the same time still efficiently represent the interests of their supporters? What lessons can be learned from previous experiences with party corruption? These are the questions we have to address as nationals and supporters, if you will, that is, of the two major parties here in Grenada. We have to be able to answer these questions willingly and honestly. Good. You see that housing situation that everybody beating their gum about? They were hoping that it would have continued along the corrupt line, where some people could have been bribed to turn the delivery of some of these houses in a particular direction. But that is not to be. If you cannot qualify to be able to repay between $350 a month and $500, tell me something, anybody paying $350 a month rent today? Or $500 a month rent today? Well, tell me, where are you getting one of these lovely apartments to live in? Huh? For less than, where are you finding that? In Grenada? EC, you know. And you know EC is an invented money. They really have no value. Where are you finding that? And all you outside there beating your gum. But as I've told you before, poor and vulnerable, because many of you, and you seem to like the title, many of you think the people that are talking on your behalf like you. They don't like you. They just hate the government. So don't mix up their talking against the housing thing and how the government is electing to distribute them. Don't think that that means they like you. No, they don't. They want you to be on the vote farm so you could bring back what they used to benefit tremendously from. That's all. So they will talk on your behalf, but it's not you they like. They hate the government of the day because they can't have their way. There are some of them whom you can see behaving bad at every turn because they have no alternative. None whatsoever. Largesse dry up. Largesse done for them. And then they have those again who are quietly seeing how they could ease themselves in. Let me see if I could get a little walk you here. But they're still wicked. Because anything that is tainted with that green juice, wicked, and need a lot of purge before they can actually become a member of the normal society once again. They've been so brainwashed to the core that they've become tainted. They've become so DNA infected by the nastiness of that national nastiness party. Folks, if we don't make a concerted effort to stamp out corruption, many of our succeeding generations who are forced to live by the very poor leadership construct under which they are led, whether by party or government, will continue to lay wait for the opportunity to become thieves themselves. After all, they are taking their cue from their corrupt, thieving leaders. What a sad reality. They are actually seeing them going unpunished, and so they are now ensconced in their belief that it is okay and proper to prosper by dishonest means. Folks, too many of you who refuse to think for yourselves do not understand that your active support for inferior, characterless men and women who you pedestalize by electing to office over your affairs are simply not interested in you. They prove that all too often. That is why you poor and vulnerable with no hope. They are interested in themselves and their own prosperity. So while they proceed to a flourishing finish, you proceed to a fizzling end. Not for the life of me can I understand that a leader of this nation's affairs for an entire generation in context of time, almost 30 years, could fail so miserably at positively impacting the lives of all Grenadians. Why would someone so blessed squander that and come now today after causing your downfall as a people to the abyss of hell, be telling you he is concerned about the poor and vulnerable that he created? Whose lack of vision turned so many of you into poor and vulnerable. That same man that wants these same poor and vulnerable to believe that he's concerned about them and their well-being is the architect of you becoming a member of a vote farm, because all he was doing is farming you for votes, keeping you poor, vulnerable, dunce and stupidity. That is all. That's supposed to be a crime against humanity. Folks, I have taken this to heart to the point where it has become my personal project to see to it that many, if not all of you, start to see that sucker for who he is. Nothing but a con man who presided over the stifling of Grenada and its people for his own benefit and the benefit of his close cohorts. Look at the plight of our nation's youth from the time he came to office in 1995 to 2022, and I add, for the most part, zero. Many of them were placed in a never-ending, poorly supervised and structureless training program called Imani. No hope of graduating. Just keep them captive and stuck in that so that the brain tells them they're only worth $800 or at most $1,200. And when they get too old for it, send them to debauching. The majority participants of that program are today nothing. Held them under a never-ending spell of foolishness. That is what you call corruption to the max. You see, that's why I continue to advocate that we should bring he and all those responsible for the travesty against our people, bring them to a public square and flog them regularly as national punishment for all their transgressions against the people of this country, which thus retarding our national development. That is why I advocate that there must be some form of punishment meted out to the old nastiness and all his cronies, for fear that our young people become too entrenched in thinking there is nothing wrong with corruption and that the only thing that is wrong is to be arrested, and therefore the only thing they must do is to avoid being arrested, just like their leaders. Many of our people today would love to be in the position where they can steal, especially when they see there is no punishment meted out for the old thieves they elect as leaders. Many people are known to condemn corruption, not because they hate it, but rather because they don't have an opportunity to be corrupt themselves. You see, they're looking for that opportunity. I firmly believe that even among opposing forces to the National Nastiness Party, there are those who wish they have the opportunity to just be as corrupt or even worse. We have to strive to reintroduce our region's people, and I dare say Grenadians, to the norms of integrity so they can see the value of honesty once more. But we have to start to punish severely the corrupt. Our silence here in Grenada condoned and encouraged thieves to be elected between 1995 and 2022, while everybody was made to live with the consequences today: severe poverty and deprivation. And that is precisely why we have to stop electing thieves to public office, because when we do, they ensure that they operate with impunity and proceed to steal with... Boy, it's really, really sad. This thing really gets you mad, you know. All this time, our moral guardians, the church, turn a blind eye. Folks, we need to analyze various areas of party activities and identify incentives for corruption. You see, these incentives are well known, as we can all identify the square peg contractors that were put in round holes to manage projects totaling millions with nothing to show for it. Nothing to show for the money spent, except to see these same inferior infidels calling shots in our community with their ill-gotten gains. Some of them could hardly read and write. If they see their name on the ground, they can't pick it up. But they were contractors. The reality was there for all who wanted to see that the National Nastiness Party, with its inherent corruption, had absolutely no interest in grant money that required accountability for spending. Look at the Fort George Rehabilitation Project that is very much on its way since the new administration took office, meeting the money just about to be expired and raced ahead of time so that it does not go back to the donor. Look at the Fort George project. Look at the water modernization project with Nawasa, just to name two projects that were almost lost. Why? Because you see, they were not attracted to grant money that needed accountability. They didn't want that. They had to account for every spend. They wanted only to borrow money that they had total oversight for, so they could do what they want with it and have absolutely no one to be accountable to, because all you to give them Grenada, all you to give away Grenada to them. Not even you docile people who were long browbeaten into total submission recognized that you needed to hold their hands and their feet to the fire. Folks, we need a change of attitudes and mobilization of political will. Absolutely necessary for us to address corruption. This place is too small for the amount of corruption in this place. And you've seen these idiots walking around with their ill-gotten gains, classlessly, looking like vagrant with $1 million watch on their hand. We have to get back to the stage where we can build back a solid civil society, and don't talk about a free media capable of professionalism, not the one we have currently, which is totally compromised one way or other. These two entities can play a crucial role in anti-corruption activities in the area of political parties and government and governance. In our neck of the woods, voter awareness of corruption and their discontent with corrupt politicians ought to be increasing, even though not as fast as we would like to see it. Cases of political corruption and bribery ought to bring every qualified voter to the streets in protest. Look, how many years? Folks, 1969, 70, nurses struggled. What the nurses were struggling for? Poor working conditions. No medicine. Low wages. Hello. Those ever went away? That was before independence. We got independence and one would think that these things should have been fixed. Now we are even worse off than we ever were. And then you have union people talking crap. 15 months of a new administration. But this is the worst the hospital and the health facilities in the country has ever been. As if they could fix what was ignored from 1995 to 2022 in 15 months. You see these games they're playing? They too want you to believe they have your back, but they don't believe them is the government they hate. They don't have your back. It's the government they hate, because they never see a government work in favor of their constituents. In the history of their membership of their own unions, they've never seen it in the history of Grenada. Folks, when you see them come, you need to block them because they're talking crap, total crap. A matter of fact, anybody that could hold a straight face and tell you these things have to be mentally deranged, or they take you for fools. Let them speak only to the green people, but don't listen to them if you're not green, because they're talking crap, total crap. You see, it's important for us to speak like this so that these idiots will realize that we have a few of us here who they can't fool and they can't get through to with their nonsense. Getting on as though, with a lot of venom and hate. It's not venom and hate, Folks, you know what it is? It's envy. They're jealous. that the government don't have no relationship with them, but they're working on behalf of their constituents. How you call it? Minimum wage gone up. No thanks to them. No thanks to them for the minimum wage. And you know what is interesting? 2 occasions within the history of Grenada was the same NDC administration that did it. Did they beckon and call the old nastiness and his brigands to attend the minimum wage? Huh? Come on. Come on, folks. When these people come to disrespect your intelligence, you must mete out the same disrespect to them. Push them back in their holes because they can't be serious. You see, along with information, disclosure, and transparency, folks, an informed public is the best means to prevent corruption. And that is what I'm trying to do to you here. Inform you so that when all these idiots come talking rubbish, you could push them back in their holes. But we cannot have an informed public when one way or other, members of the media are widely suspected of being on the payroll of the corrupt, aiding and abetting the peddling of lies and conmanship. If you are truly conscious and aware, you did not have to look too far to see how ostracized the 1 or 2 people who used the media to disseminate information alternative to the lies of the several infidels in the Fifth Estate. You just look to see how these 1 or 2 people were treated between all of 1995 to 2022, and you would see what I'm talking about. You see, folks, I hold that only if these old thieves and crooks posing as politicians and party leaders know that their activities were closely watched and chances of exposure were high, they might have refrained from corrupt activities. Folks, why you think I'm pushing so hard? Why you think I speak with monotonous regularity and call the old nastiness by his real and appropriate name, the old nastiness? Because you're all supposed to know that that is what he is. He didn't love you. He lied. There's another lie again. You see, what you all don't know is that in the case of Taiwan and also in the recent elections in South Korea, if parties can win elections on the basis of their anti-corruption programs and transparent and democratic party organization, other parties might follow their example, thus instigating change in the party system. Look at Singapore today. That country's founding leader, Lee Kuan Yew, God rest his soul, had zero tolerance for corruption. What resulted? A nation that grew from nothing, from a swampland, to become the second most densely populated landmass in the world, the nation with the highest standard of living and quality of life in the world, the nation that boasts of the leading seaport and airport operations in the world, and among countries with the highest per capita income in the world. But Singapore is only 59 years, 9 years older than Grenada. And what does Grenada have to show for her 50 years of independence? Watch me now. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just a whole set of thief down that take place in the country. In the absence of corruption, the benefits go to the people, folks. That's why Singapore's per capita income doubles its former colonial master, Great Britain. Look at us here in Grenada and tell me if the benefits are coming to the nation across the board. We now have a chance for that to happen. And a lot of you grumbling and making noise when you couldn't make no noise under Ali Bongo when he was in power, so to speak. We have to stop having the tendency to support corrupt leaders for we will continue to lose big times. What have we got to show for 50 years of national independence? Absolutely nothing desirable as a collective, except to be proud of Spice Island Beach Resort, Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited, the Creative Group of Companies, and Belmont Estate, all locally privately owned, all locally privately managed, all locally privately staffed, and all locally privately trained. These are 4 stalwarts. But you notice something? No arm of government or the public sector in general can so boast. All we can see is the grand total of decadence as presided over by the poor leaders chosen time and time again by you, the mostly unthinking people. Certain media entities reported well-researched stuff here during campaign periods, and it resulted in the people going back for seconds, thirds of clean sweeps by the most corrupt political organization to set foot on our local politics and our local political landscape. It was clear for all who have eyes to see, folks, that the civilization in Grenada has taken a nosedive to the abyss of hell and developed its own devil to preside over it. Voter education and financial and organizational support for civil society groups are thus crucial elements of anti-corruption policies. You see, regional and local seminars about good governance and best practices for civil society organizations that educate voters might be a suitable strategy to increase awareness of corruption. It is in the interest of duly elected leaders to invest in anti-corruption punishments, even if punishment does not decrease corruption. You see, as a punishment meted out by the people of this nation, all voters, qualified that is to vote, should see to it that the National Nastiness Party, the NNP, never sees power in this land again for all its malmanagement, maladministration, malfeasance, and nastiness over the years, which have retarded this nation's ability to grow and truly have something to celebrate on our 50th anniversary of independence. Folks, the only how we can get rid of corruption is to punish the corrupt. Saboteurs who make every effort to protect the corrupt should also be punished severely. Get rid of them all. And when the union come, get rid of them too. I'm in, I'm out, and I'm gone. Thanks for joining. Continue to share. See you next week, God willing, for regular programming. Until then, stay safe, stay well, remain lifted. Peace and blessings to all of you folks. All of you, and thanks for joining me.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Welcome to Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy. For too long now, our generally perceived poorly educated electorate have fallen victim to the cheap and inferior propaganda of those seeking to hold others captive under the guise of democracy. Gladly, the CDGG uses edification to help to actively pursue a sustainable approach to reorient our people towards the importance of electing and selecting people of good character to public life. Through edification, we will highlight the importance of education appropriate to our development, proper healthcare and facilities as our right, respect for law and order, not to mention upgrading our people's thinking so they could become qualified participants in the democratic process to their advantage. After all, Grenada's national constitution makes allowances for the ideal of free men to enjoy freedom from fear and want, which can be best achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy his economic, social and political, civil and cultural rights.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the country cold store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Join us, Grenada, as we continue to promote a legacy of excellence through the Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Training Program. Over 1,000 Grenadians have been trained. Food, transportation, service industries, and other frontline workers who don't want to miss out on this one. Learn more at www.puregrenada.com/excellence champion or call GTA head office at 440-2001. Remember, excellence begins with me. Excellence ends with all our represent 47
Training sessions will resume on mainland Grenada from 9th to 13th October and 23rd to 27th October, and November 6th to 10th and 20th to 24th, 2023, in this year of transformation for service in Grenada. I am Eddie Frederick, a proud partner to this GTA Pure Grenada Excellence Champion Program. Get registered and come on in. You'll never think the same again.
We represent 47 Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as